Spirit Airlines is dead. 17,000 people just lost their jobs. The cheapest airline in America, gone. And here is what nobody is telling you. The war that killed it is the same war that is about to make every flight you book more expensive. At 3 in the morning on May 2nd, a pilot received a message in his cockpit. All capitals, no signature. We stop flying at 0300. No ceremony. No farewell speech. Just a blinking line on a screen. And 34 years of flight. Over. Stay with me, because by the end you will understand how a war in the Persian Gulf killed an airline in Fort Lauderdale, why the 4 airlines left standing are about to raise your ticket price, and why Spirit is not the last. It is the first. Let's start with the math that murdered Spirit. The airline built its entire business on one bet. Cheap fuel equals cheap seats. Their bankruptcy plan assumed jet fuel would cost $2.24 a gallon in 2026. By the end of April, jet fuel hit $4.51, exactly double. The entire business model collapsed in 63 days. Spirit did not run out of passengers. It ran out of math. The exact trigger is debated, but the mechanism is not. On February 28th, the US and Israel struck Iran. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil trade stopped moving. Jet fuel prices doubled, and the airline that needed cheap fuel to survive was the first to fall. What does a missile in the Persian Gulf have to do with a hotel receptionist in Orlando? Everything. Stay with me. Meet Daniela, 23. Works at a hotel front desk in Orlando. She used to fly Spirit to San Juan 4 times a year to see her mother. $69 each way. That is less than what some people pay for a parking ticket. Spirit was not glamorous. No legroom, no free bags, no snacks. But it was hers. It was the airline for people who count every dollar. And on May 2nd, it vanished. Now here is the part that should make you angry. The president who started the war tried to save the airline the war killed. Trump offered $500 million in taxpayer money to keep Spirit alive. His own party said no. His own advisors said no. The creditors said no. The transportation secretary called every airline in America to find a buyer. Nobody wanted it. You cannot breathe life into a corpse, one creditor said. But nobody asked the obvious question. Who killed the patient? A strait closed 8,000 miles away. Fuel doubled. An airline died in Florida. And the man who ordered the strikes offered to pay for the funeral with your taxes. Oops. Now zoom out, because Spirit is not just a dead airline. It is a warning. Ryanair's CEO said it last week. If jet fuel stays at $150 per barrel, 2 or 3 more European airlines will go bankrupt by autumn. He named them Wizz Air, Air Baltic. He said Wizz Air will not have enough time to sue him before it goes under. That is not a forecast. That is a eulogy written in advance. In Italy, 4 airports have already imposed fuel restrictions. In Ireland, fuel protests shut down highways and triggered a vote of no confidence in the government. Slovenia became the first EU country to introduce fuel rationing. 50 liters per day. That is 1 tank. Enough to get you to work and back. Maybe. Here is what Spirit's death actually means for you. Before Spirit died, 4 airlines controlled 80% of American flights. United, American, Delta, Southwest. Now the cheapest competitor is gone. Studies show that when a budget carrier leaves a route, the remaining airlines raise fares. Spirit did not just sell cheap seats, it forced everyone else to sell cheaper seats. That pressure is gone now. Airfares are already up roughly 15% compared to last year. With Spirit dead and fuel still doubling, analysts expect more increases through summer and into autumn. Daniela's $69 flight to San Juan, that seat no longer exists. The airlines that remain will charge significantly more for the same route. Let me say that again. Spirit died on Saturday. By Monday, JetBlue announced 11 new routes from Fort Lauderdale, Spirit's home base. Spirit's stock dropped 25%. Frontier rose 10%. JetBlue rose 4%. The competitors did not mourn. They carved up the body. The airline that existed to keep your tickets cheap is gone. The airlines that remain are celebrating. Your ticket price is about to reflect the difference. Oops. The global economist Mohammed El-Erian called it the canary in the coal mine. The war's spillovers, he said, risk pushing other fragile businesses over the edge. Fitch Ratings warned that financially weaker airlines could default and return aircraft early. Spirit is the first company killed by the Iran war, but it will not be the last. Any business built on thin margins and cheap energy is now standing on the same trapdoor. Airlines, trucking, shipping, agriculture. The fuel shock is not selective. It is patient. Here is the pushback. Spirit was already struggling. It filed for bankruptcy twice. The pandemic crushed it. The business model was broken before the war. Fair enough. But here is the mechanism question. Spirit had a plan. It was exiting bankruptcy. It had financing in place. It was going to fly again this summer. Then a war doubled its fuel cost in 2 months. The plan died. The airline died. 17,000 jobs died. A family drove from Tennessee to Atlanta on Saturday morning for a Spirit flight to Miami. The mother, the father, 4 children, packed and ready. They walked into the terminal and saw the departure board. Every flight canceled. The mother looked at her children and said, "So the whole airline at every airport is out of business?" Yes, if the war had not happened, Spirit would still be flying today. Not thriving, but flying. The war did not create Spirit's weakness, but the war pulled the floor out from under a company that was already on its knees. That is not a market correction. That is collateral damage with a boarding pass. Oops. War has never had a winning people. Not on the losing side. Not on the winning side. 3 things to carry with you. Economic. Jet fuel doubled from $2.24 to $4.51 in 63 days. Spirit's business model could not survive the math. Ryanair's CEO predicts 2 or 3 more European airlines will follow by autumn. Airfares are up 15% and climbing. 4 airlines now control 80% of American flights. Less competition means higher prices. The cheapest seat just became the most expensive lesson. Social. Daniela used to fly to San Juan for $69. That seat no longer exists. 17,000 Spirit employees lost their jobs on a Saturday morning. Families showed up at airports across America and discovered the airline had vanished overnight. The people who could least afford to lose cheap flights are the ones who just lost them. Global. Spirit is the first corporate casualty of the Iran war, but the mechanism does not stop at airlines. Any business that runs on thin margins and cheap energy is exposed. Ireland is protesting fuel prices. Slovenia is rationing. Italy is restricting airport fuel. And Ryanair's CEO is writing eulogies for airlines that have not died yet. The war closed a strait. The strait doubled the fuel. The fuel killed an airline. The airline left 17,000 people without work and millions without cheap flights. One broken link, one trapdoor, and the person standing on it never saw the war coming. Oops. Remember Daniela? She checked Spirit's app on Saturday morning to confirm her flight to San Juan. The screen said all flights have been canceled and customer service is no longer available. She is not a shareholder. She is not a policymaker. She is a hotel receptionist who wanted to see her mother. And a war she did not vote for, in a country she has never been to, just took away the only airline she could afford. If your flight just got more expensive, or your airline just disappeared, tell me what it looks like from your seat. Follow the money, not the boarding passes.